It's a thing that works. Good evening.
Oh, well, good evening to you.
Well, I mean, technically, it's still daylight,
Light
but
out?
actually, I don't know if you can hear that. Can you hear all the applause that's happening outside?
Yeah, love it.
It's amazing. It's incredible. I just spent.
That sound, the screaming and the yelling.
Well, no, because it's for the we do it every week for the NHS. Sorry, I just realized you're looking at my.
Oh, it's actually happening. I thought you were
There's
making
actual
a joke
applause.
that there
No,
were
I mean,
people clapping for you, but there's actually people clapping for the National Health Service workers.
exactly. And don't get me
Cool.
wrong,
Cool.
my unwavering arrogance would make me believe it's for me, but this is
Well,
definitely not for me. But I stood there
well,
for a couple of minutes with a tambourine and did some shaking and stuff, so that was fun.
well. Oh no, if I turn them off. I was hoping I could like minimize the comments in some way because
Oh
they're
no,
over your face. But
they're only. I
well,
mean,
so
I can just.
yeah, go this way. Just
I
so
can
they're
turn.
right there. Hi, buddy.
Hey, bud, how you doing?
I'm good. I
Right.
miss
I'm
you.
actually, I'm actually literally just going to sit over here like this, and then also you get to see my lovely things.
Your studio is sick. You've really done some unbelievable work there.
It's been a whole thing.
A whole
Yeah,
project.
I gotta immediately give a shout out to Ollie Waiton, who's one of my best friends in the world and like my engineer professional nerd friend. He and I have been putting this together for the last week to make sure that when I do like live streams and stuff like that, because of everything that's happening, because we're obviously all stuck inside, that when I'm doing live streams, the quality of the audio that I'm sending to people is the best fudging quality it could be. That's what we've been working really hard on, because that's something that means an awful lot to me. As you know, I have been called a control freak once or twice in my life. Huh?
Is that why we're friends?
Why is that why we're friends?
This is so
Wait,
weird.
are we
We're
friends
kind of
because we're really bad for each other in the sense that we support each other's overbearing controllingness?
I actually think you are very good at talking me off a ledge, and I'm very good at talking you off a ledge.
This is
But
very
we
fair,
also
actually.
understand how we wound up on the ledge in the first place because our ledges are the same.
Our ledges are in very similar places. When I get to my ledge, I often look over the ledge and I see you on another ledge.
Like,
And
hey,
we wave and we go, hey, bud, why are you on the ledge today? And you're like,
buddy.
oh, the same reasons. And I'm like, hey, me too. Let's get off the ledge. And then we're like, yeah, okay. And then we drink mezcal and everything's fine.
Honestly, the fact that you have an old fashioned is
I do.
devastating to me because I want one. I have a coffee, and because I'm interviewing you, okay, so this is a really silly thing, but
was it?
One of my very favorite late night shows ever was The Late Late Show, back when it was with Craig Ferguson.
With Craig Ferguson?
Craig Ferguson is my hero. So I brought
favorite thing in the world.
Craig Ferguson mug.
I actually, this is a really good point. Me and you we've never had the Craig Ferguson is the greatest person in the world conversation. I've never been fortunate enough to meet him, but I went through, when I was in a pretty bad place last year, I went through a period of just watching Craig Ferguson and Jeff the Robot videos on YouTube for months. It's just the only thing that could send me to sleep. It's the only thing that made me feel like happy and fulfilled. It's a very strange thing to find solace in, but I love that man.
I really love that show. God, he's
I love
so
that you
cool.
got that. That's wicked. Yeah.
I went on a couple of times and we just love each other. He's one of my favorite people to talk to. It's so fun. So essentially, so cool. I was like, I have to put my Craig Ferguson.
Wait, so are you being Craig Ferguson right now?
I mean, I don't know that I could ever try to fill those shoes, but I'm going to ask you questions about your life.
Whoa. Also, I love that like anyone under the age of 16 has no idea who we're talking about.
I know, it's really sad. I'm like, get it. You guys need to go on YouTube and learn.
It's very
okay, so hi to everyone who's with us. Thank you for joining. I'm sure you figured this out, but we are talking to the incredible Jack Garratt today. You are one of the most talented musicians I've ever listened to, let alone ever seen.
This is going to be a very hard conversation for me if you're going to say more things like that. I might have to leave.
But you're going to just have to deal. One thing I am going to ask folks at home to do, and I say this with so much love, I'm going to save this, but like this is a conversation for me to have with Jack. Maybe we just don't have to talk about like TV shows I used to be on in the comments section. That would be super great. Because you're covering the space. And
can I talk about them?
Sure, you can talk about whatever you want, but it's like, just leave us be. I say it with so much love.
Yeah.
But I want to talk to my friend, and I can't turn the comments off because I have his Instagram handle and the new record pinned for you so that you don't miss anything. Yeah. So we'll see how long I can stand it, and we'll see hi, Jackery.
Hey, bud.
Hi. I'm so excited about this album. Also, I just like die for the way that you're doing it and releasing it, and I think it's so smart. You've been doing these releases in these increments of 4 with this beautiful visual album that you made. And I reposted it, and you posted it yesterday, but there's a photo of us in our stories in your studio in London back in November, and you were playing some of these songs for me and Sarah and Babs. And the photo is just me going, I was so like in my own feels listening. And what isn't on film, luckily for me, is when I, for no reason at all, burst into tears while
when I played Mara, right?
Mm-hmm. I started crying, and you looked at me after you were done, and you were like, "Are you crying?" And I was like,
"Well,
these songs, they sound the way feelings feel." That was the only thing I knew how to say to you. I'm like,
by the way, they sound the way feelings feel is immediately going to be put on a t-shirt and sold. So
okay,
thank you for that. No, I remember playing that and genuinely being really taken aback by your reaction, because up until that point, these songs had just existed in my head. The only people who had heard them were like my management and my label and Sarah, my wife, and people who were ultimately contractually obliged to say that they like me. But that reaction that you had when you did Mara was legitimately like overwhelming, because it was the first time that I was able to see a genuine emotional connection that somebody was having about a song that I'd written. And these songs, like I write them and they live in my head forever, and I obsess about them, and I scrutinize them, and I hate them, and I love them, and I go forever in this weird cyclical pattern of, what's the Bart Simpson's meme, the "I am so smart" right next to him just like tucked away in bed feeling horrible about himself. Like I constantly live in those two worlds. And playing that song, which is a song that means so much to me, to someone who is so dear to me, and to see that very genuine and honest reaction was what was like soul vibrating. Like it was such a strange phenomenon that I hadn't felt. And like, thank you for that, because I know it comes from such an honest place with you, and I find it so hard to accept people's genuine reactions as genuine and honest. And I kind of had no option there, because you forced your tears onto me.
Listen, as our friend Sam says, my eyes sprung a leak. It was not a choice. I was like, what's happening to me? This is very embarrassing, but also the best. I feel like maybe we should go backwards and tell the people how we know each other.
I was going to say, because that's a fun story. That's a fun story. Can I tell my version, which is very short, and then can you tell your version, which is probably not?
Yeah.
So my version of the story, how me and Sophia met, was at the Troubadour in LA a few years ago. I did a couple of shows back to back, and Soph came to one of them. And then the next day she asked me to move in with her. That's literally the story. There's no other thing you need to know. Sure.
No, we had nothing between those two.
There's nothing between those two moments. We met, you asked me to move in with you. The rest has been 4 years of lovely history. No,
you are that charming.
I wish. No, I did the show at the Troubadour. You invited me to breakfast the next day. I had nothing going on, so I went with you, and it was obviously a very strange and surreal, crazy experience for me. And then I managed to explain to you that my wife and I were trying to move to Chicago at that time. And that's when you literally just said, "Oh my God, I live in Chicago. I have a spare bedroom. Do you have a place yet?" And I was like, "No, of course. We literally just had the idea yesterday." She was like, "Okay, you're moving in with me, and that's it." And I went, "Wait, hang on, I don't know who you are." She was like, No, you're moving in with me. I was like, "No, stranger danger. This is very weird." She was like, No, you're moving in with me.
But here's the thing, and I'm gonna give it a little color. So because of two of our other really good friends, Aaron and Lauren Paul, it was really those two who said, we've been getting to know Jack Garratt, and like, he's so brilliant, but also such a good person. And when my best friends tell me that someone is like the kind of person who gets into the inner circle of the friend group, I automatically am like, well, that person's been pre-screened. It's like, you got approved for global entry. Like, you did the thing, you did the background check, you're a great person. I was like, okay, awesome. And everyone had been going to shows and things for you, but I'd missed a bunch because I was in Chicago.
Yeah,
and then
I
finally was home. You were back in LA. I was on hiatus. I came to the show, and we were talking that night at the Troubadour with a bunch of our friends, and I was like, we got to catch up. Everybody's been doing the things. You've all been doing the parties. I'm always the person who misses everything because I'm away. So we were like, oh, great, we'll have breakfast. And then you're talking to me, and we're just sort of talking about life. And we had this rad meal, and it was like we'd known each other forever. And obviously we didn't, but it felt that way. And then you say to me, Sarah and I are moving to Chicago. And I was like, no way. I live in Chicago. Where are you guys moving?
So
and
dumb.
You said to me,
when you talk about it, it's so dumb. It makes not as in your choice to ask me to move in with you, just the like comedy of things that led us to a position where we were living together. It's so weird.
It's so weird. And you say this thing to me that is a person who's now been living there for 2 years, who also understands the complexity of the city. You say to me, oh, we don't have a place. We're going to sign a lease online. And I was like, in what neighborhood? And you go, no. We're just going to look at some buildings online. And I'm like, no. I love Chicago. I still have like deep Chicago pride. Yeah. But also, it's a very tricky city. Like, one end of a street can be in a neighborhood where you want to live, and one end of a street, like, there's a shooting every other day. And I don't say that critically. I say that simply to say you got to kind of know where you're going.
Yeah, and especially, because I had no idea where I was going. I literally didn't know where I was going.
And you were like, no, we're going to do it online. And I was like, okay, well, I actually just moved into a place that I have so much room, like, and the way it's laid out, my bedroom's over here and everything else is in between where the guest room is. Like, you don't even have to talk to me, but why don't you guys come stay with me for like, I don't know, a couple of weeks when you get there and like learn the city a little bit, and we'll show you around and you can figure out where you want to live. Go see these buildings in person, because as a person who loves home everything, I also know that everyone photographs places with those wide lenses so everything looks big but isn't. I was like, you're going to get stuck in some apartment that you hate. And you said, and you very Britishly, you say, oh, we couldn't possibly.
Well, we couldn't possibly. No, absolutely not.
Okay, I was like, but really, I mean it. Like, you're in
the
crew.
As I've come to learn with you, though, when you say something like that, you're not asking me a question. You're telling me about a decision that you've made. so I, you know, exactly. Me and my nose and whatever were meaningless. It didn't mean anything. I knew I was about to come and stay with you.
Well,
but those 2 weeks ended up being like months. I'm very aware my camera's like slipping down. I got to fix this. Keep talking. Sorry.
Well, the best part is, listeners, that we then were just all in constant communication, and every 2 weeks I'd go, how's the search going? You know, maybe get an Airbnb somewhere, and just don't sign a lease online, please. Just don't do that. Also, the offer still stands. You guys are welcome to come stay with me for a little while. But we couldn't possibly, and we had months of exchanges. We couldn't possibly. How's the hunt going, Jack? Well, we had one place fall through, but we're gonna get another one. You can always use my guest room. Well, we couldn't possibly. And I think it was like a week before you guys were coming. You called.
No, it literally was. I'd forgotten it was that close.
It was a week.
No, that's so stupid.
And you were like, so everywhere we've been meant to stay isn't working.
I can't believe I treated you as a last resort. That makes no sense.
You were like, did you really mean it? Could we stay? And I said, oh, could you possibly? And then the best part is you were on tour. So sweet Sarah, who I'd never met in person, showed up with all her stuff and all your stuff and was like, hello.
I don't know you, but I kind of do, because obviously, but also I don't know you. Yeah. I'm going to live in your house for possibly a few months.
Literally best friends ever since.
It's so silly. I got to find a weight, because this is moving in weird places. Give me 2 seconds. I got to find something to weigh it down.
Okay.
Hold up. Here
Can you put like a book under it or a,
No, it's really, this is a thing that's happening.
Well, that's okay. This is a good time. At least you're discovering it while we're chatting and not while you're playing music to everyone, which is
which
going to happen.
is literally going to happen after this. So I'm going to
Yeah.
find a way to just stand us up here, and that's how we're going to do it.
Okay.
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 But
yeah.
So
everyone, that's how we know each other.
Yeah, I just can't believe that that's a story that actually exists. But the thing that it leads me to think about though is like, so I've known you for however many years.
Almost 5.
Almost 5 years. I've known you for that amount of time. I lived with you for a little bit. I've known you because I lived in Chicago. I've spent I've spent a fair bit of time in LA while you've been there as well. Like, we're really, really good friends. And yet still, and I think this is an important part, I think, of the of this conversation, simply just because of how it relates to what this album, Love, Death and Dancing, has been about, and what I've been writing it about. And we've had these conversations before, but every time I've hung out with like the core like group of friends that I've been so lucky to know, that include you and include other people that we have in common, every single time I've been with you guys, I've always felt an of nobody wants me here, I should go home. Like, that's been a really present, and it's really funny because the story of how we met and everything about how like our friendship came to be, it all of it seems so so conspiratorial, as if the universe is like pushing us together, right? And yet the whole way there was a voice in the back of my head that was going, this isn't right, and you know it. Like, run with it, sure, but this can't happen forever. Like, be smart. No one, like, they're putting up with you because you're talented, or they're putting up with you because you write songs. No one wants you here. At some point you're going to have to leave the party. And then the party kept going, and I never left it, and people kept being nice to me, and it's such a weird thing. And I know that you deal with the same kind of imposter syndrome that I deal with,
Big time,
because we've spoken about it before. But in the 5 years we've known each other, I think it was only recently, or maybe even as late as last year, that I actually admitted to you that, like, every time we hung out, whether it be big groups or small groups, every single time it was so anxiety driving and stressful for me, because the whole time I felt like I don't deserve to be there. And so much of this album has been me writing from a place of encouraging that thought, of thinking, why do I think about myself like that? Because what it's got nothing to do with is you. It's got nothing to do with the way that you treat me, because you are absolutely the mother hen that you are, and decided that you love someone, it stopped loving them. I know this.
My phone just rang, right? You being so bun. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. Don't be silly.
Okay.
No, but I was just saying that, like, yeah, you accept people with such an open love and wanting. So it couldn't have been you. And everyone that we know, like, you know, everyone else, the reason why, like, you know, we met through Aaron and Lauren, like you said, and I had the same feeling with them for so long. I refused to believe that these genuinely nice people loved me for who I was. And when I started writing this album, I had to face why I thought that. And I still haven't come to an answer, but it fascinates me so much so that for that long a time, I was able to play a character of someone who was totally fine with everything that was happening, when inside in my head, I was just freaking out, not knowing how to behave, not knowing how to cope. And I remember, and I'm going back to a specific story that I remember, I think I've told you about before. Last year, when I was making this album, I was in LA. I was making some of it with an amazing producer who's based out in Topanga, a guy called Jackknife Lee. And I was driving back from his, and it was around Thanksgiving, and you were having a few friends over. And I remember texting you on the way back, because I was staying at an Airbnb out in East LA somewhere, and I was just on my way back there. It was going to take me like an hour, and I texted you being like, hey, I'm on my way back. I know you said you were having some friends over. I just told you I'm leaving now. I don't want to come over if it's like late and if it's a whole thing. And you were like, no, it's not a whole thing, just like come. And I remember being like, okay, yeah, I know, but I won't get there until like 11, and I just don't want to impose myself. I don't want to be blah, blah, blah. And the whole time you were so loving and so nice, and so just like, yeah, no, just come. People are here. We all want you here. It's going to be great. And then I remember doing it one more time, just being like, no, I couldn't. I'm like, it's going to take so long for me to get back. And you just went, look, people who love you are here. Come. And that was it. It was this weird little moment where I felt like you were in the kindest way possible chastising me for just not listening to what you were saying. And it did so much for my emotional confidence at a time when I was writing this album, which is so much about my emotional confidence, where I just, you grabbed my spine and you just shook the dust loose. And it meant I was able to come over and we just hung out and had a nice time. The next day I went to the studio and I like made Mara. Like the next day I went to the studio and I finished making Mendahar or whatever, like these songs that mean so much to me, that tell so much, so vividly a personal story for me. But just the minute you started talking about it, it really made me think of that story, and I felt the need to say it just because it's important to me. It's important to this album as well. It's important to the music I make. I don't know if I'll ever really truly accept or like myself, but it really does make the difference knowing that there are kind people in the world who do. And this album is so much about trying to love both of those things and accept both of those things to be true, which is difficult. It's really hard.
I get that.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you too.
It's really interesting. I was talking to one of our friends about that just the other day, that even in rooms of my best friends, something in my head says, they don't want you here.
It's so strange.
You
it's
just
so
like,
strange.
you work everybody's last nerve a little bit.
No.
And
How could you possibly think that? Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But something in my brain is sure that it's true.
Yeah.
And it is a process, I think, to figure out how not to listen to that, to figure out how to recreate a relationship with yourself, to realize that your inner critic is not in charge.
Yeah.
And your inner critic isn't the voice that knows versus the other voices. It's like, why wouldn't I just trust the voice that's like, yeah, I'm so happy to see everybody.
Yeah.
You know?
But this is something else I've been talking about a lot recently as well, that like there is a strange societal expectation about these kinds of thoughts that we're talking about, these feelings, because they make other people uncomfortable when you talk about them out loud. And I've been saying this a lot in just like interviews I've been doing, because I've been doing a few of them recently, and I go back a lot to this point, which is that there's no societal expectation for me to challenge or question my.
We did it.
I dropped the phone.
I mean, here's the thing.
I had it set up and it was so nice.
Yeah, but
I dropped it.
This is real life.
I know it is, and I'm trying so hard.
Everything we ever put out is like edited and it's been fixed and it's whatever, and now it's like, this is it. This is just where we live.
I know. And I was halfway through.
Douglas.
I was halfway through saying something. Oh wait, there's the things back. Oh, Aaron's on.
Aaron, Jack Danson. Oh my God. I'll never get over it.
This is all very nice. Thanks everyone for sticking around. I'm really sorry that I just disappeared and ruined the conversation because I was halfway through.
You didn't.
I'm so hot. I'm so sweaty now. Oh my God, I'm sweating. I'm sweating so much.
But I loved what you were saying, and I was saying.
What I was saying was,
a societal expectation is so important. And what I find, and I wonder if you're finding this as you're having conversations about this album, which is so much about mental health, so much about relationship to self, so much about excavating the spaces where that voice lives and figuring out what else there is in there.
Yeah.
And I have actually found that the more vulnerable we get with each other, we think people are going to go, "Ooh, this is sticky," or "These feelings are weird." But over and over and over again, when we get honest out here about what we're feeling, rather than doing this, most people go, "Oh my gosh, you too?"
Yeah, because there's a support group that exists, but that's exactly it. There's a support group that exists, but you won't find them if you live in silence. And I think that I think that's exactly what I was saying, and especially to not hold punches with specifically what my experience has been, which has been particularly that of the way that talking about your emotions is suffocated in the language of young men, which is something that's discouraged in the language and in the day-to-day challenges and narrative of young men. The thing that I was saying is that like I said, there's no societal expectation or challenge on my happiness. But when I'm sad or when I'm depressed, I am constantly given answers or fixes or clues to make it better, like whatever it is. And I refuse to believe that my emotions are a problem. And I especially refuse to believe that they are problems that need to be fixed. Like I think, and this is what Mara is about. This is what that song that we were talking about earlier is about. Mara is about inviting those feelings into your internal monologue, inviting those feelings into your life and allowing them the air that they're asking to breathe in, allowing them the attention a little bit that they're trying to demand from you. It's specifically, so Mara, for people who don't know what it is, it's a song I released on the first volume of my album, and it's a song that tells a story about, well, it's a song that's taught in Buddhism. And it's not a song that's taught in Buddhism, sorry. It's a story that's taught in Buddhism that tells the story of a spirit called Mara, who's a manipulative and distracting spirit. She's a malicious spirit. She decides to go and distract the Buddha while he's meditating underneath his tree. And so she disguises herself and makes herself invisible. She goes into the garden where the Buddha is meditating and he's there blissful and unaware. And she creeps up towards him, undisturbed, unaware. And the Buddha, with his eyes closed, notices that there's a change in the presence around him. And he exclaims to what looks like an empty garden, "I see you, Mara." And Mara is so taken aback by being spotted and being seen like this that she appears to the Buddha. And the Buddha invites her to sit and have tea with him. And she does so. And they sit and they talk about politics and religion and philosophy. And the whole story for me was, when I found it, when I read it, was translated into my head about invasive thoughts and intrusive thoughts and the way that we talk about ourselves, and how unhealthy it is to swat those thoughts away as if they haven't come from us, like falsely expecting these thoughts to have come from somewhere else, as if someone else has put them in our heads. They haven't. These are our thoughts. Like, we've had them, and if we've had them, surely our role is to accept them and ask them why they've come. And I've started doing that. And I started doing that when I found out about the story and I started writing Mara. And I allowed myself to engage with my sadness, my depression, my funky, like my funk, whatever you want to call it, whatever people call it at home. But I engaged with it and I asked it what it wanted from me. Did it need me to sit down? Did it need me to just curl up and do nothing? Did it need me to go out and run? Did it need me to try any of the things that people would usually suggest to me as fixes for my depression? You know, oh, get out, go for a run, you'll feel much better. All those kinds of things. Like, do I need to do any of that, or do I just need to accept that it's there, and will that actually make me live with it better? And the minute I started engaging in that practice, I started to accept myself. It was very, very weird, very strange how quickly it happened. The minute I started to just accept myself as being a mess, you know, a headphone cable in your pocket that you can take out and straighten as much as you want, but the minute you put it back in your pocket, it's gonna find a way to knot itself up again. The minute I just understood that that's how my emotional tangled works, I felt better about being an emotional tangle. Yeah, it just helped.
And I think there's such a truth to, everyone deals with this in their own way. But I think it's part of the reason that so many artists have those questions of, do people just entertain me in these spaces because of what I do? That's the way that when you make music or you make TV or you make whatever you make, you wonder, oh, are people just into me because of this? You know, we've got other friends.
Well, it's exactly how I felt about you guys when, like, in those friendship groups. Exactly. Yeah.
And it's like, on the other end of it, you're going, there's so many people who make great music who are uninteresting to talk to. Like, you're interesting to talk to. But I know that we all have a bit of that, which makes me realize that regardless of what anyone does for a profession, everyone has something in their life, in their relative experience, where they say, oh, well, this is the reason I'm tolerated.
Yeah.
But where is the proof for my, you know, my demons or my sadness? Where is the proof for those darker elements to me that those elements are looking for, that says this is what
the validation of them?
Because look, at the end of the day, you can find proof for any story you tell yourself.
Yeah.
And I love that you're talking about the experience of beginning to accept your whole self.
Yeah.
Because even for me, beginning to learn how to do that, rather than turning my back on anything that wasn't good, because as much as men have been sort of shuttered from having an emotional life in society, so many women get raised to be good girls. So anything that wasn't good, wasn't polite, wasn't poised, wasn't professional, any anger, any sadness, anything like that, I turned my back on for a long time because it wasn't good.
Yeah.
And I had to actually pick up my anger, and I had to pick up my sadness, and I had to pick up my grief and hold on to those things as being elemental to who I am.
Yeah.
Just like my intellect or my curiosity or my kindness, the things that were good.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I've observed it as I've tried to apply tenderness to injustice that I look at. One of the things I think about with these sort of traditionally gendered roles is, well, if we only tell boys that, or if we tell boys that the only option they have for expression is anger. Don't be sad, don't be vulnerable, don't cry, don't, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're angry, if you hit something, if you play football, if you're tough, great. So your only outlet becomes anger. And then we wonder why here in America, 1 in 4 women's been raped by the time she's 22. And it's like, well, if we've created a culture where the only expression of anything is anger, we wonder where all this anger and violence is coming from. And that's not to downplay the severity of those issues. That's actually how I've come to understand what the root is. And so then I think about it in these sort of compounding ways on the inverse for me, where if I've been cultured to be so good, if I feel like I'm not allowed to be angry, I put so much energy into the good, into the positive, that I overstuff it, and I'm leaving empty and hollow these other parts of myself. So of course I'm not comfortable in my own body because half of me feels hollow and half of me feels overfilled.
Yeah, but and again, it's all to please a societal expectation. All of this, even the defense of it, even the change of the behavior, even like the anarchic, anti-establishment sense of like, well, I'm not going to behave that way because people expect me to. All of it is because people expect me to behave a certain way, or they don't expect me to behave a certain way. And I think there's such a blessing in being, or such a liberation in being able to behave and act and feel and exist purely for the selfish sense of purpose. Like I've talked a lot about how selfishness is important, that the stigma behind selfishness is unwarranted and unhealthy, that to be selfish is to love yourself wholly enough that you care about what you want and you want to get it. Now, whether that selfishness is displayed as arrogance and overconfidence and can end up being unhealthy is all part of the same conversation we're having, which is ultimately about balance. But having selfishness in you, to me, is a trait that I find attractive in people and in my friends, because it just shows that you care enough about yourself to have asked yourself at some point, what do I want? What do I want, and how can I help myself get it? And so you can be, that can be emotional, it can be physical, it can be materialistic, it can be whatever. But at some point, you just have that conversation with yourself, and you've honestly asked yourself, what do I expect from myself? How do I achieve that? I think a big problem for me for a lot of my adolescence was when I asked myself, what did I expect from myself? I just saw myself through the eyes of people around me. And the eyes of the people around me when I was 14, 15 were adoring and complimentary and setting an expectation for myself that I think I was never going to achieve. And ultimately, I've then had to kind of grow up not achieving it. That's my dog. That's Indy. Indiana's downstairs. She's barking because there's someone at the door.
She's barking because she misses me, be honest.
She's barking because she misses you, but also she's never met you, so I don't know how she could miss you.
Because we FaceTime sometimes, Jack.
Because you do FaceTime sometimes.
She knows my voice.
She does know your voice. She knows your voice, and she can know your face the size of a phone screen.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I wish I could bring her up. Annoyingly, I can't.
No, it's okay. But I love that, and when you talk about, what strikes me is that in a way it's a redefinition or a perspective shift on the idea of what selfish means. Because self-love is not selfish. Self-knowledge is not selfish. You can only know the world as well as you know yourself.
Right.
And when we don't know ourselves, when we don't get selfish with ourselves, we ignore very often our pain or where we feel disjointed. And then we wind up putting that pain or that disjointed energy out into the world around us because we're not dealing with it inside of us.
Right.
And so to me, it feels like we need to separate out on the spectrum of like being a doormat, which none of us wants to be, and being a narcissist, which none of us wants to be.
Exactly.
It's like selfishness, I actually think of as a balanced ground zero, where you have priorities for self, which then allow you to have priorities for the world.
Right, exactly. No, but that's exactly it. That's exactly the best way to think about it. Because again, it's like I said, yeah, it's as long as you're not encouraging those behaviors to be like purely self-serving.
No, because that's narcissism.
That's exactly. Which exactly, yeah, the stigma that exists around selfishness and its loose connection to narcissism. No, that's a really, really, really beautifully eloquent way of putting it.
So can I ask you a question? Because, you know, these are big.
Please.
It's my job today. See, look at me. I'm being a late night talk show host. So,
and I'm being a really good guest.
You're being a great guest. I can't believe I don't have a cocktail. I'm furious.
It's fine.
But it's also
not
even 1 o'clock. I mean, you're not wrong, but it's not even 1 o'clock here, so maybe it's fine. But these are, you know, these are high. They're high concept, but they're universal.
Sure.
And when you talk about how, you know, you getting the dust shaken, as you said earlier, helped you go, oh, right, I can go where I am loved. I can go where I am invited. And I can invite myself into myself, really. Feels like a big revelation. How do you begin to do what you've done with an album like this? How do you turn those big conversations you're having with yourself and those big questions that you're asking yourself into music that feels like, that sounds like feelings feel? That is, I mean, because it is, Jack, this record is joy and expression and expansion. And like, I turn it on in my house and I like fucking yell and dance around and laugh. And it's magical in its energy. And I think a lot of people might assume that when you're writing an album that's based in the exploration of your own mental health, it might be like sad music.
Right,
and
exactly.
But
that's so much of what I'm trying to achieve. What I'm trying to achieve here. I sent it to another friend of mine a long time ago when it was still in its demo phase, and the word that she said it sounded like a reclamation. And the minute she said that, it made the album make much more sense to me, because that's exactly what it is. There's nothing that says that songs about this kind of stuff need to be sad. They also don't need to be falsely positive. Like Better, for example, it's a song I put out 2 days ago, and it's I've called it's a dance song for the end of the world. That's just the best way to explain it. But the song and the song is like, some people have been. Well, thank you very much. Some people have been quite vocal in how they disagree with the change, you know, the change in tone or sound that I've made, because it's very poppy. It's a 4 on the floor, and it's got a hook on it. But also, I love doing that anyway, and I love pop music, so I don't understand why people are surprised by that now. However, the majority of people have been like really into it as a concept, because it's doing exactly what you're saying, which is it's not hiding away from what it's about. It's not pretending to offer answers it doesn't have. It's existing as a celebratory song, because art ultimately is a celebration of freedom. But it's about constrictions, and it's about lack of choice, and it's about illusion of free will. I don't know. I kind of like, it's difficult to dissect. It's difficult to dissect the intention of an emotional journey of a song, because it's impossible to predict. A song like Better was always going to come out at this time. However, I had no idea how poignantly relevant it was going to be given the current situation that we're all facing. The song, the minute I start writing it, starts to exist in its own life, and it starts to ask me what it needs. my responsibility as an artist is to keep listening to the songs that I'm writing and to try and offer it the sustenance that it's asking me for. And something like Better was always demanding of me a big, like, wide sound, a big, like, fucking, like, just like lovely chords and lots of detail and a hammering 4 on the floor the whole way through. It was demanding I have fun while I make it. And then when I got to the lyrics, they demanded something completely different from me. And that's my job, is to be able to accept every song as being like a Schrodinger's box of emotions and not knowing which one I'm pulling out this time. But I don't know. So your question is difficult to answer, simply because I'm not necessarily in control of the emotional narrative of a song. All I can do is write from what I need from it and from what it needs from me. You know, every song on this album, I've really tried to tune in with that way of songwriting, to not question too much what I'm doing. A lot of this has been first thought, best thought. So the melody that I'll think of for a song is the melody that will stay with it through to when people hear it. It's the first idea that it's the first idea that I had. It has to be the best one. That came from, actually, that was a decisive thing I started doing, because I realized I was getting out of touch with my instincts a couple of years ago. And I started just limiting my choices to the first thing that I either saw or thought. So if I was at a restaurant, I sat down, opened the menu, the first thing I saw that really took my fancy, that's what I was going to have. Close the menu, put it away. Doesn't matter if I got through the whole menu or not. Same thing with, like, when I was thinking about what I was going to wear that day. I would wake up, the first outfit that appeared in my head, that's what I would wear that day. I wouldn't waste any more thought on it. The point of that being, I'm trying to store up that decisive energy for later in the day when I needed it in here. This is where I need to be using my thoughts properly. This is where I need to be actually creating and having ideas, not wasting that energy on, oh, well, you know, what trousers am I going to wear? Just fucking put some trousers on and go and write a song, you idiot. That's the driving force behind a lot of this album.
Is that why you're wearing so many jumpsuits lately?
It's literally why I'm wearing so many jumpsuits. That's literally the reason why. If I wear a jumpsuit, it limits me to just choosing one outfit. This is one outfit.
Yeah.
Fucking brilliant.
It's great.
Anyway.
And you just gave us a little preview, and one of the things for anyone who's watching who maybe doesn't know the specifics of how you make your music, which is so technically exquisite. Like, you are a savant. It's not normal. And shake your head. He's like, I'm not, but you are. You're a prodigy. I've never seen anybody do anything like what you do, because a lot of people who listen to your music assume you have like this enormous band, because the music is enormous. What's happening with the drums and the guitar and sometimes organs and sounds that you're just like, what's going on? It's just you. Yeah. You do everything by yourself. And what's crazy is I've been to shows where I've watched you like play the guitar, and then you swing it on your back, and then you reach over and you're playing the piano over here with one hand and hitting drums over here with the other. And I'm like,
yeah, it's this guy. I'd play one hand on here, and then I'd play another hand doing all this stuff. And,
because that's mental, and most people can't do that. So will you give our viewers today a little tour of your studio, please? Because
sure. Well, I mean, yeah. So once we're done here with this little chat, which I'm aware. Well, no, because we started again, so we have a little more time than we would have. But I'm gonna go on my channel, and I'm gonna play like a whole bunch of songs. I'm gonna play new songs I've not played yet. I'm gonna play old songs that people might have heard, and it's using all of this. It's a whole thing. But I mean, essentially.
Yeah, let me tell people what's happening, just to reiterate. So what Jack and I realized is that, you know, you can save a live for 24 hours, but you can't save 2. So we're putting our conversation, we're going to save it to my live story, whatever, for 24 hours. And then when we're done talking, follow Jack over to his page, because he's going to play a concert for you guys that will then also be saved on his stories for 24 hours. So you can send those to your friends who, like, you know, might be working or something right now, but they can watch us like do our little And then we
Hi.
can watch you do the,
Yeah, all of that kind of stuff.
yeah.
But this is all, so literally everything here is stuff that I'll use that will make noises.
Oh, cool.
When you first saw me, I was doing this show, which was, I'd have a keyboard to the left of me, I'd have some drum pads in front of me, I'd have a guitar around my neck, and I'd play all three of them at the same time, I guess. Not at the same time, I played them, some of them at the same time, most of them just one after the other. And again, like you said, it's because the songs, when I recorded them, I did pretty much the same thing. I played everything on the records. I played everything on Phase, which was my first album. I played everything on Love, Death and Dancing. That's not because I refuse to share the spotlight, although I find it very hard to share the spotlight, apparently. It's because I don't know any other way of making music. I really honestly don't know. And if I needed another musician to come in and play something, I absolutely would do that. I'm not doing this because I'm trying to hog the limelight. I'm doing it because I truly believe that this is my music. On the front cover of the album, it says Love, Death and Dancing, music by Jack Garratt. It's not, song and lyrics. It's not produced by or whatever. It's music that I've made. Music is an overarching umbrella term. This is music by me. My live show is very, very similar. This time around, however, have made a setup where lots of these instruments play themselves. They're playing things I've pre-recorded in other places, and because of a very complicated setup, they play themselves. I can still interact with them and change the sounds and do stuff, but it allows me an opportunity to just sit down and play one instrument and sing a fucking song, because that's what these songs are. That's what this album is. The first album, for those of you who know it, it's very much of its time. It's very naive sounding. It's very busy. It's very full of arrogance. It's me overproducing because I'm scared you guys would hear I'm not confident in my production. It's me overperforming because I'm scared you'll see I'm not confident in my performing. It's me overwriting because I'm scared, blah, 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 blah. You get the gist of it. This album is the opposite. It's strikingly bare, even though it's full of noise and fun and joy and music. At the heart of everything is a song. That's what I've really, really tried to make true, really tried to make apparent, is at the heart of all of this is a song. And that's kind of what this setup allows me to do. It allows me to play a song, but it allows you a window into what my mind is hearing when I'm writing it. So I will mostly just be playing like guitar and a keyboard. Sometimes I go a bit mental on the drum pad there. But mostly it's me really trying to engage with every single time the song, so that you, the audience, the people who are watching or listening, that they get 100% of the emotion of the performance every single time. I'm never going to perform a song and not give everything I have to it, because it doesn't do it. If I were to give less than I could possibly physically give to a song, it would be doing me a disservice. It would be doing you a disservice. It would be doing the song a disservice. That's not what I'm here to do. That's not what I think my role as a musician is. If you can talk to my therapist about this, but my attitude is, if I'm not giving everything, I'm not giving you me.
Right.
Yeah.
And then where did the visual element of the album come from?
Oh, right. So I mean, you can kind of see it on the screen behind me. There's those like splatters of color and the vibrance of it all. So much of this album I wanted to interconnect. I wanted to make sure that the core premise of the record, which was, like we've been talking about, this emotional journey that I've been on, that I'm still on, that I will be on forever. I wanted it to be represented by every single element of the album. So it's represented in the music, it's represented in the lyric, it's represented in the melody, it's represented in the songs. It also has to be represented in the imagery. It has to be represented in the artwork. It has to be represented in the message of the album. It has to be represented in the photography. Every detail of this album has to represent the same internal struggle that the album talks about. And so I got in touch with an amazing artist from Belfast, a friend of mine, a guy called Jack Coulter, who's an abstract expressionist. He's a few years younger than me, and he's an absolute, he's a wunderkind. I do not understand where he gets his ideas from. I sent him a demo of the album about a year and a half ago. He sent back 50 different individual pieces. We chose 5 and have been using those. to help talk about the album, to visually talk about it. We then managed to get in contact with a photographer based in Dallas, a guy called Jake Wagner, an incredibly talented photographer. We sent him all of Jack's artwork. We sent him the album. Again, same thing. He was on board. We did a photo shoot with him where we incorporated all of Jack's artwork and me as a silhouette. And that's what all of the artworks have been. That's what all the volume covers have been. This weird little vision that I had a while ago that other people have that without other people would never have come to life. But again, it all just reports back to the same core value, which is what this album needs to be about, which is not something I want to kind of specifically disclose, because it's something that other people, it's something, like you said, I want people to feel it. I want people to feel what this album is about. It's not my job to say it explicitly. It's my job to just present the evidence, and then you make your decision from there.
And I think that really good art, you know, be it a performance that you watch on screen or an album that you listen to, the artist is having such a specific experience, but they're communicating about, because look, we each live individual lives. We have individual narratives, but we have collective experiences. Grief, and love, and loss, and curiosity. And so I think really good performance, you're having your specific experience, but you're communicating it in a way that makes it so relative to mine that I feel like it's for me. I feel like you wrote it for me. I feel like the song is for me. And so it's interesting, because when you make art, you have to get comfortable with it being the most personal thing to you. And also, the minute you put it out in the world, it becomes personal in a different way to every single person who views it or hears it. Yeah.
And that's the bit about this I don't get. That's the bit about my relationship with art that I don't understand. And I don't think, like, I don't want to take ownership over anything that my fans experience, even if they experience something that's because of my music. It's just not about me. It's so far from being about me at that point.
Yeah, because then it belongs to them.
Exactly, which I also like agree and disagree with that every now and then, in the sense that, like, the art belongs to them, but it is also mine. It's such a weird thing. It's such a strange phenomenon.
Because there's so many things that they're intertwined and sort of competing, and they're all true at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's kind of a mind fuck.
Yeah. Well, which, I mean, to beautifully bring this background in a cyclical fashion to what we were talking about at the beginning, all of those things can simultaneously be true. We expect one of them to be true more than the other, which is that, you know, the art belongs to someone. It's either the fans or it's me. Well, actually, no, it belongs to all of us, and we all have ownership over it in a very weird, vague, abstract way. But that's why I said I don't want to take ownership over the music. I take ownership over the things that are mine, like the performances I give. Those are mine. I can control them. I can make them the best that they can be. The music, I've done everything I can to it, and I have really fucking done everything I can to it. But now it's done. It's all done. Everything's done. 2 volumes are out. There's 2 more to go. It all comes out June 12th.
The full, all 4.
Done. All 4 will be available June 12th, and they'll be available. They'll be available online in 4 volumes. They'll be available physically in a different playlist. So the vinyl record will have a different track list to what the 4 volumes are, because it's for a different listening experience. Again, I've really tried to think about every detail of this. I've really tried to cater it and make sure that it's going to be enjoyed and consumed in the most appetizing way possible. I love these songs, and I hope that other people will love them as much as I have enjoyed making them. Yeah.
How many songs are you going to play for everybody on your Instagram page in 3 minutes?
I mean, I will play until my neighbors start to complain. Okay. Which hopefully will be probably an hour's worth. I don't know. I'm going to play. I'll play Time, and I'll play Better, and I might play acoustic versions of the 2 other songs that were on volume 2. I also love playing Mara, so I'll probably play that. I also like playing some of the old songs. I don't know. I'm going to make it up. I'm going to see what people want.
There's a huge burst of hearts when you said you'd play Mara. I think after the storytelling around it today.
I love
People
that.
really want to hear it. So you should, yeah, look at this. You should definitely play it for everyone they want. Give the people what they want, Jack.
No, because it's mine. No, I won't. Good.
Oh, buddy, this is so fun.
Thank you. Thank you very much for hosting
real quick,
me.
I'm going to turn this back on just so that people can see it in writing. There's Jack's handle. Go to Jack Garratt's page now for a live concert. You're welcome. I didn't do anything. But I'm gonna preemptively say your ears are welcome. And it also says down there that the full Love, Death, and Dancing is out June 12th.
Yeah.
But people can go where? I mean, everywhere.
Everywhere.
Spotify and SoundCloud and all the things to listen to the first 2 volumes.
Yeah, and you can head to my website. There's a bunch of stuff there. You can pre-order the album if you want, all of those kinds of things. But it's available to listen to everywhere. Yeah, 6 songs are out at the moment, and there's 6 more to go.
I'm so excited.
Me too.
Woo! I love you.
I love you too. Thank you so much for having me. I'm gonna go and set up and get this all ready for people, and maybe they'll come and watch me play some songs.
I think if they know what's good for them, they will.
Soph, I love you very much. Please stay healthy and stay safe, and I'll see you soon.
I'll see you on yours.
Thanks everyone for watching. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.